Hey everyone, hello! Welcome to a cozy book discussion afternoon. Well, discussion. I say discussion, but it will basically be me ranting about the books that I read last year. So I read 80 books last year, and I put them all in a thing. This is the first time I'm doing like a ranking thing. So I think I did it right. So we're gonna go through these. They're not in any order. I just saved all the templates from Goodreads. Why would anyone make red S tier? Is it me? Am I the weird one? But for me, that doesn't make any sense. Green to F. I don't know if I'll put any. Yeah, I'll put a couple books in F. I'm very excited. Also, I'm reading such a fucking boring book right now. I don't know why Paul Tremblay is so popular. This is my second Paul Tremblay book, and I hated them both. So this is separate from 2024, but I think the reason I don't like him is because he's playing it too close to reality. I just want balls to the walls, ghosts, horror, gore. As far as from reality as possible. I just want the weird stuff. Also, this is going to be very interesting because I've read so many books that some of them I'm like, what happened again? I don't really remember the ending. I am very particular and very neurodivergent. I'm very weird in how I like my things, so I wouldn't say this is going to be a good insight. Do I read manga? Not much. I did read a Junji Ito book, like an omnibus this year, and it was in my Goodreads, but I figured for the ranking, because it's manga, it's kind of like almost too different from the other books, so I took it out. I also had like 2-3 self-help books in there that were kind of just garbage now that I had more time to process it. Well, and there's a couple fantasy books, but I've never done a ranking thing before, and I'm mentally preparing myself that people are not going to agree with me, of course. But I also don't in any way mean to be like, if I say like I didn't like this book, I'm not saying this book is bad. I'm just saying that it didn't gel with what I like. Everyone's like, so, you know, you have a preferred writing style, you have a preferred way things develop in books. If a horror book ends with it was all in your head, kill it. I hate it. I just will immediately dislike the book. I need like the people that are experiencing these things to like be validated in the end. But yeah, I've had some good experiences. I've definitely had, it's been really nice recommending some books or saying like these books are really good, and then seeing like months later a comment on YouTube or someone in chat who's like, I read this book by the way and I did really like it. I'm like, oh yay, that's great. It's nice to think that you can be like, I really like this, and then someone coming back with like, me too. The Gab Book Club, yeah, it's finally happening. Okay. So these are all the books I have read for 2024. I tracked them in Goodreads. I have a public profile if you want to keep up to date with what I'm reading when. Don't have to. I don't accept friend requests, just saying that. But you can follow the account, I think, if you're interested. But, fair warning, I basically only read horror. With the occasional dip into fantasy or science fiction. Will it be spoiler free? Yes, of course. Ideally, I would like you guys to pick up some of these and read them for yourselves. These are not in any particular order. They're not in chronological order. I think for the most part they're alphabetically, just because that's how my folder organized them. So I guess if it's not in any particular order, maybe I should just start with the first one in the row, which is not... I read this one fairly recently, I think. A Botanical Daughter. Now, where would I put this? I think it's a B one. I think it's a B for me. B for Botanical. So it's like two guys who live in a greenhouse together. Like they have an estate. One of the two is filthy rich, basically. And they had a main house and a big greenhouse. Victorian, I would say. Gay couple in a huge conservatory. Kind of like hiding away from the world, because obviously Victorian England, the gay couples were frowned upon, to put it very mildly. They want a daughter, so they make one out of plants and a dead body. That's the gist of it. That's the setup, and then of course stuff goes. Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna say anything other than that. So the premise definitely drew me in, and I really loved the couple. And I loved the daughter as well, and I really grew attached to her. But the ending, the reason it's in B is because the ending, I kind of was just like, oh, that is not where I thought it was gonna go. Yeah, gay necromancy, pretty much, yeah. overall, I really enjoyed it. Do not listen to the audiobook. Holy shit, it's bad. It's a guy just narrating, but then when he does the gay couple's voices, he puts on an air like this, and it totally pulled me out of the book every time he spoke. It is really, really bad. Okay. Then, next up, for Christmas, I read Christmas Carol. S tier. Such a good book. I'd never read it before. My favorite Christmas movie is Muppets Christmas Carol. I watch it every year, so I knew the Christmas Carol story through the Muppets. And I was like, you know what? I should read it. I've been reading a lot this year. I should read the original. And I was a bit apprehensive because, of course, the story's like, 170 years old now or something? But despite knowing the movie so well, the book still added a touch of like, what's the word? Sentimentalism? I think I can say to it. It made Scrooge a lot more... He was more of a softie on the inside and more... He showed his emotions more in the book, which kind of like almost made me cry at one point. It really stands the test of time, and it's still really, really good, I think. Okay, Lonely Broadcast. Oh, I'm so excited for part 2. This is a really good one. If you like the Reddit no sleep stuff, you will love this book. It started out as a Reddit story, and then the author built it into a book. It has to be A. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait for part 2. It's that perfect like isolation. This woman gets hired to run the radio station at the edge of the forest, and it's very important that the radio station broadcasts at all times because the frequency is holding a monster at bay, basically. Stuff happens and they have to like rush back to the tower, make sure the broadcast stays on, that kind of stuff, and it's super exciting. She tries to find someone in the woods because she cares for them, and she's like, wait, I have their phone number, and then calls and just stands there in the forest and then hears the phone ringing. That kind of stuff, fucking love it. That was so good. Oh, another Christmas one. Oh yeah, because of C, I guess. Christmas Ghost Story. Oof, not F, obviously not F, but I'm gonna say C or D, just because throughout it was really fun and witty, and I liked how it was building up to something, but it completely fucked up the landing for me. It really felt more like a jokey. If you go into this one next year, maybe for Christmas, knowing it's like a jokey Christmas horror story, then you might like it more than I did. And it's a very short read, so like it's just a fun one. Oh my god, Bakemono. Definitely D tier. Holy shit. This is the one where I was like, I have stories to tell. Oh my god. So the author herself recommended this book to me. Left a YouTube comment saying like, I think you'll like this book. I didn't know it was the author, I think, at the time. I think you'll like this book because it's like yokai, takes place in Japan. And then I read the synopsis and it was like, it's like basically a bunch of YouTubers travel to Japan to like vlog the haunted forest or a haunted shrine or something, and then obviously stuff goes wrong. And I was like, oh, I kind of like that setting. I love when people go to like a haunted house or a location trying to film things. That I really love that setup. That's why I like Grave Encounters so much. So I was like, okay, the premise like is really fun. I'll give it a shot. Like, it was a really short book, maybe 100, 200 pages. I don't remember, but I remember it was a short read. I was like, I can just take a break and from my usual books, and I'll take it. I'll take the recommendation. So I don't want to be too presumptuous, but I think the characters in the book are based on me, Sean, Felix, and Mark. I started reading it, and once I realized, I was like, this is so weird to read. It was like one of the characters had lived in Japan. One of the characters lived in Japan, had a baby. All these things fell into place, and I was like, wait, you're not actually... Wait. And then I was like, wait, am I reading horror fanfic right now? And the reason I'm not putting it in F tier is because aside from that, I actually enjoyed it. I feel like the author has talent. I think she can be a very good author. It's just that I don't think she should have base the characters on us. Especially because there was a kappa in it, and you know what kappa do with anuses? They suck your soul through your anus. So that happened to one of the characters, and I was like, oh god, this I don't know how to feel about this book. If she just hadn't based it on us, I would have really liked it, I think. Emma, if you're watching this, it was very awkward, but at the same time, you do have talent, so please just write something that doesn't use YouTubers, and I think you're onto something. Okay, Black Tide. This one, Sean gifted to me, and I really, really liked it. But did I like it as much as Lonely Broadcast? No. I think I'm gonna end up with a lot of B tier. Black Tide is like, it didn't go in the direction I expected. Something crashes from the sky. It's this main girl who's just like house sitting at the beach, at a beach house. Basically, alien invasion, end of the world, but right at the start of it. And how are they gonna... And I really enjoyed it. It was really tense at one point, but at the same time, a lot of it, I was just like... I guess some books you kind of can't help but feel like, I would do it this way, you know? So there were a couple things where I was just like not really gelling with it, but overall it was really tense and really good. So if you like alien invasion stuff, then this book is definitely a good recommendation. Kudagra. C tier. Sophia Ajram. Very short read. If you like backrooms, I would recommend this. It's like a guy on the subway who gets off at what he thinks is his station. He ends up in like a backrooms subway station that just has no end. I thought it was very good, but the reason I'm putting it in C tier is because it was kind of depressing, really. And I'm not huge on like... It was just... It made me feel really sad. Sean wouldn't like me putting it in C tier because of that, because he likes... We always get into this like little argument about... I'm like, I didn't like it. I feel too sad. Like I'll carry this with me for like a while before I start feeling better. But Sean is like, no, if stuff makes you feel things, that's good. Like he likes when books and movies and everything tug at his emotions, but I'm a bit more like, it really fucks me up. So I kind of like, it obsessed me for like a good week. The character has like suicidal thoughts, so fair warning for that. But yeah, just so... I loved the backroom setting, but it was very sad. Craven Manor. Ooh, I read this one recently. Definitely A tier because it's Darcy Coates. Darcy Coates is my favorite author at the moment. Absolute favorite. She's so good. I love everything she writes. It's just very good. This is more of a dark fantasy rather than horror, I would say. I don't want to give too much away, but it's like, okay, yeah. The premise is this guy gets a handwritten letter under his door that is like, do you want to tend to the gardens of this manor? We'll pay you handsomely weekly. And then they don't give an address. They say, turn left at the oak tree, basically. He wouldn't accept it except for that he's about to get kicked out of his apartment. He's kind of like living paycheck to paycheck already. Like taking cleaning jobs wherever he can, but no contract. So he starts like clearing the gardens around the manor. But he's not really allowed in the house. There's like certain weird rules, like between midnight and morning sun, you have to stay in your little shed. Close the curtains. Do not answer anyone who knocks at the door. That's the setup. And I was like, oh, I fucking love Darcy Coates. I love that kind of stuff. Then, what is this one called again? God. Something of the Moon Spider. I'm gonna put it in C as well. Crypt of the Moon Spider, yeah. This one is wild. I did really like the setup. It's like Victorian England, but it's on the moon. So it's like Victorian, like steampunky sci-fi. Victorian, but sci-fi. And the main character, this woman, suffers from melancholy. So she's just a little depressed, and obviously back in those days, it's like, oh god, what do we do with her? Send her to a sanatorium and hope for the best. Isolate her for a good while, that'll make her feel better. But it's on the moon, and yeah, I think that's all you need to know. And spiders. I loved the balls to the balls ending, and I saw on Goodreads that it was a part 1, so I'm excited for part 2. But both of these books are very short reads. They're like novellas, basically. So That's why I think I put them a little lower, because you don't really have much time to get attached to the story and the characters. If that makes sense. I kind of just read it in a day, and then it's like, that was cool, and then you kind of move on. Yeah. But I do really, I loved the weird setting, and it took me a while to be like, wait, we're going to the moon? Because in my head, they were like sitting in a carriage, all like Victorian England like. So I liked the little whiplash to sci-fi. Very, very unique setting. And very powerful ending, which I liked. Oh, Diavola. Oh my gosh, so good. Will I make it S tier? Yes. I still think about her a lot. I think about the main character a lot. It's a family traveling to Italy, and the Airbnb is haunted. I honestly felt more fucked up about the family dynamics than the actual haunting. The family dynamics are written so well, and you just kind of like want to punch them all in the face. The family is just so annoying. It's so realistic, and it really like got under my skin to be like, God, I fucking hate this family, and I felt so bad for the main lady. The ghost was really interesting as well, very unique. So if you have any like irritation with your own family, give it a read. I think you will like it. I think it'll really resonate with you. But I think about very specific things that happened in this book still. And I've read so many books. The fact that I was so into it, and I can recall so many things that happened and how it went. This really stuck with me. So I think that's our first proper S tier aside from a classic. Jennifer Thorne, who wrote Diavola. Perfect. It's very good. Now this one, From Below, is the only Darcy Coates book I did not really gel with. So I'll put it on C tier. It wasn't bad, but I just didn't gel with the setting, like the diving. It's basically a shipwreck at the bottom of the ocean that's haunted. And she does it really well. She does like really well. The most exciting bits are when they go down and they really have to like manage each other's oxygen levels and keep an eye on each other. But they're all kind of like, there's only one really experienced diver on the team. So it's kind of like, they kind of rush the whole team together, and it's not really good. But they have to go down there and they have to get recordings done for a documentary. I would say half of the book would be in A tier and half of the book would be in C tier. It goes between the divers and what happened on the ship before it sank. And all the memories of before the ship was sinking were so good, and I was so into it. But the diving, I just couldn't imagine it. I think that was my problem. Like I have zero diving experience. I just don't really know what it would be like. And when stuff really started happening and like was going on in the ship, I just had such a hard time getting into it because I couldn't really picture what they were doing. So this is like the weakest rating Darcy will ever get for me, a C tier. D tier for sure. Dark Matter. Maybe it's an F for me. I only read it because Sean wanted me to read it and the TV show was coming out. Black Matter by Blake Crouch. I felt like the character dynamics were so shallow. It really felt like this guy didn't know how to read. Blake. Is Blake a woman or a man? I'm not sure. But it felt like they couldn't write the male character. He gets thrown into a parallel dimension and he needs to find his way back to his one. He wants to find his way back to his wife and child. His personal parallel dimension where everything fits, basically. He wants to go back home. And the whole book is about him trying to find his way back. But what irked me about this book is that whenever it was the wife's perspective every now and then, she seemed to understand him. And she was like, oh, like the way he puts his toothbrush in his cup or the way he likes his coffee. She had all these little details that she knew about him. But then when it came to his perspective and what he liked about his wife, it was always only like her beautiful hair, her beautiful eyes. I was like, is this a trophy wife or what? Like, do you not like the way she smiles, the way she talks to you, the way she respects you? I couldn't gel with that. And then it did get pretty cool towards the end. I liked the ending a bit more, but I think you could argue that it's character development for him, that he sees his wife in a somewhat shallow way in the beginning, and then the longer he's away from her, the more he starts like realizing the depths of their relationship. Maybe. It's not that it's written badly, but I just didn't like it, you know? Gallows Hill, Esther, baby. I think this was maybe my first Darcy Coates that I read. Perfect book. I have no notes. Every little thing that comes up in the book throughout the book comes back for the ending. Every little like crumb of information leads up to like a big conclusion. Absolutely perfect. Haunted Vineyard. Awesome. Ghost Camera is a bit more tricky. I'd say B or C because it's like short stories, and I just personally don't really like short stories that much because, again, you don't really have much time to get into the story. I feel there's not really that much depth to the characters because it's just short. One story literally gave me goosebumps though, so it's definitely good, but they weren't all good, so that's why I'm giving it a C tier. I don't remember how she gets the camera, but it's like the setup of like every time she takes a picture. Visitor. Oh, the beep! Every time she takes a picture, she sees ghosts, and every picture she takes, they become more aware of her and like aggressive. So the more pictures you take, the more fucked you are. Hi, baby. You come and heat me up because I'm cold. Hey. So yeah, that one was really good. There's some really good. There's less good stories in it. So that's why I'm putting it on C, just because I'm not huge on short stories. Ooh, Ghost Virus. What do I think about this book? C or D? I do want to read the other books. So this is a series. There's like 4 or 5 books in the series. And it's like 2 cops in London. And they're basically X-Files. Like they get put on the cases that people can't explain. Ghost Virus by Graham Masterton. Yeah, I do really like Masterton actually overall. Yeah, no, I think I put it in C then. Oh yeah, there are some scenes in Ghost Virus that I was like, as I was reading it, like really like, oh, nasty. People are dying in awful ways in that book, and it also does not go easy on the death counter. Lots of people die, and it was like really quick succession, and I think I'm putting it in C tier and not B because I did feel like the cops were kind of just like fumbling about, and it was like, it's almost like, you know, a serial killer where the cops are kind of just hoping that someone else dies because they need more evidence. In the gore and death of it a bit too long before actually putting together what's going on, and how they resolved it in the end, I was like, oh. But I am excited to read the other books. I Found a Lost Hallway in a Dying Mall. That's a long title. I did really like it. I would say B. I just love the setting of it. It was like an employee, the mall is dying, all the shops are shutting down one by one. There's a bigger mall being built nearby that people are going to, you know? So the mall is dying, the shops are like on their last legs, half of them are already shut down. So it's very quiet in the mall. I think it's creepypasta origin, yeah. It definitely feels like that. It feels backroomsy, which I like. And it's just like an employee hears someone shouting down a hallway where all the stores in that wing are already closed. There's no one supposed to be there, but they kind of get tricked into thinking it's like someone they know from before who used to work in the mall but then had to quit because of dementia, I think. So they're worried that person is like out there and needs help, and that lures them deeper into that wing, and then they have to find their way out, basically. The spooky setting, the mannequins are very spooky, really, really good. It's a very short book. The payoff, again, is like, I don't know if I agree with that, but sure. I feel like you could have done better, but for what it is, super fun. Oh, he wants to leave again. He just wants to check what I'm doing, and he's like, oh, that's it? Okay, well, bye then. I'm not interested. In the Miso Soup. F. I did not like this one. It's a weird one. I got it gifted by a friend because it takes place in Tokyo, in Japan. And it's like it takes place in the darker like the underworld sex industry of Tokyo. I can't say why I don't like it because it would be spoilers, but it's basically just a thriller. It's not like, I don't see it, it's nothing supernatural about this, it's just a thriller. And I think the main character makes really dumb choices, really thinks about himself, and I don't really understand his motivations. So, putting in an F. Kill Creek. Oh, I did like this one. A. I think this is an A. Because it's a haunted house. Nothing new about that. I love haunted house books. Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. Thank you. This rich person brings 4 horror authors together to stay the night in a haunted house to promote whatever they want. And I was like, okay, they're gonna be in the house, shit starts happening, they're all gonna die. That's basically what I thought was gonna happen. But they spend the night and go home, like, in the first third of the book. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? How is it not about the house? And after that, the real horror starts. So it's very, very good. Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I'm trying to think which one this is. This is not Home Before Dark, which is another Riley Sager I read. Okay, this is a girl who gets hired to house sit an apartment. Very rich, like millionaire's apartment, basically. That is neighboring Central Park. I liked this one, and I liked the twists, but it didn't really go into the direction I was hoping. Yeah, should I maybe put it in C then? Yeah, I think it's C is better. But there's other Riley Sagers that I like more. I don't know if I read them this year. We'll find out later. But as Riley Sager goes, the other ones I've read I liked more. My favorite Riley Sager is The House Across the Lake. Loved it. That's my favorite one. It's very Disturbia, you know, the movie where a guy is like spying on his neighbors and then thinks he sees a murder. Very good. I like it. My Throat, An Open Grave. Ooh, A. Has to be A. Maybe even S. This one, yeah, maybe even S, because I really carried this book with me for a long time after finishing it. I gave it 5 stars. It was good, but in hindsight, you know, hindsight's 2020. I have read so many books, and I'm ranking them against each other as well. So these are good, but just compared to some other stuff I read, you know. Tori Bovalino. Yes, it is Tori. Tori Bovalino. This book is more like a dark fantasy, I would say. It was a pretty short read, I think, but there is a sub-theme in this book about... I can't say too much because I would spoil the twist. But there's a very realistic undercurrent in this book, which is a genuine problem for women in this world. I can't say too much. That once it was really revealed to me at the end of the book, how deep this problem went throughout the book. I spent like a good week after I finished this book just being like, I kept bringing it up to Sean to be like, oh, and this is so good because this means this and this. And like, I kept thinking about this book and being like, oh my God, it's just so good. As you're reading it, it really feels like a lighter read. Like the main character feels very like young and withdrawn. But then as you get further into the book and then the ending is just like, holy shit. It's so good. Yeah, one of the best books I've read this year, I think. Naomi's Room, Jonathan Aycliffe? This is an old one. This is a classic. It's like an 80s or 90s book, I think. It was good, but it's like, it was good at the time, you know? It's one of those things where at the time it probably would have been very shocking, but I think our current day movies, books, everything's been done before. So I think at the time it probably would have been, it's a good twist, but I read it and I was like, yeah, whatever. You know, it's like, I didn't think about it much. It was just like, it's good. It's a married couple whose kid gets abducted and how they deal with the loss. Ooh, Psycho, another classic. Is it Robert Bloch? Is that the name? I would say B? B or A, honestly. I mean, obviously everyone knows the twist. I won't say it, just in case you don't. But usually everyone, Psycho's very famous. Everyone knows the twist, the haunted motel, blah, blah, blah. I read a couple classics this year, so I was giving it a shot and seeing what it was like. And I'm giving it B tier because it's an old book. I think it's from the 50s. Robert, I think, did an exceptional job of writing a good female character. And the fact that it's like the 50s or something, I was like, how the fuck? Like, I read, I think we'll get to that as well. The Rats, I think is it? Yeah, The Rats is in here as well. The Rats definitely has that 80s, 70s, 80s problem of like, women should be in the kitchen, you know? And Psycho didn't have that, which was very surprising. The ending, I think, is transphobic, but then again, it's like in the 50s, so it was a very, like, how do you say that? Like, people just didn't even know it existed probably at that time, or like in media, it's like, I think the ending aged very poorly, but then again, it was from the 50s, and I was so surprised how well the female character was written. So I guess give it a W where it's due and an L where it's due. It's a classic for sure, and I was surprised how digestible the writing style was, because usually the older the book gets, the stuffier the English, you know? 1959, yeah, it's old. Oh, this is a Brandon Sanderson. Should I go to one first? Where is he? Way of Kings. There we go. So I read the Stormlight Archives. Maybe we should do these all together because they're an arc. They're a series. And I read through the whole arc this year. And the Way of Kings is the first one. Probably S. Yeah. The Brandon Sanderson is just a very, very good fantasy writer. The books are massive. Every book is like 1,200 pages. I didn't like all of them equally, but The Way of Kings and... where is it? Rhythm of War. They're my favorites. So 1 and 4. So there are 5 books in the series. 1 and 4 were my absolute favorites because Rhythm of War gets more into the rhythm of music and song and how that's powerful. Which is also a reason why Sabriel is some of my favorites. Sabriel is all about musical magic. So I just love that kind of shit. So that's why I love these two so much. Oathbringer was... I'm going to put that on D. Oathbringer was such a struggle to get through. It took me 3 months, I think, to get through this one. And it only redeemed itself 90% into the book. And then I was like, okay, finally, it redeems itself. This was such a slog. Like, if it wasn't for these other books, I wouldn't have liked this one at all. Which one is this? Words of Radiance. That's 2. I did really like it. Not as good as these, but A rank. And then the 5th one is Wind and Truth. C. I did not have a great time with Wind and Truth. I read it in 2 weeks, so I was very into it, but some characters just kind of like get murdered in a way. They don't die, but like they get completely swept under the rug. I think because he just has too many characters that he doesn't know what to do with them anymore. Yeah, I won't spoil anything, no worries. But that's how I felt about this book, and it's still arc 1 of 2, I think. So there's still more to come. So maybe once arc 2 finishes, maybe I'll put it higher. But the way things stand right now, there was just like too many avenues in the book where I was like, ugh. Basically, all I cared about was Adolin. Adolin rules. Yeah. So I'll put that on C, I think. Hark the Herald Angels Scream. D or F? These are short stories. Like, I can't even really remember what they were about. I don't think they were that good, otherwise I would have remembered them. Oh, the Chimney Sweeper! Oh, that's this one! The little boy that has to crawl... Oh, no, wait. That one was actually good. I'll put it in D, just because most of them I was just like, yeah, whatever. Like, they're Christmas stories, they don't really lead to anything. And then the chimney one was good. Chimney Sweeper Boy was actually really good, yeah. I like that one. So I'll put it in D for that story alone. That story saves the book. Hidden Pictures. Oh, Hidden Pictures is good, isn't it? I really loved it. Great twist. Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulek. Woman who is hired to babysit the kid, but the kid is very like quiet and withdrawn, but draws pictures, and it shows the pictures in the book that the kid draws throughout the book. So it's really nice to actually see the drawings and like take a page to really like analyze what the kid's drawn. And the twist is great. I love this book. Oh god, what is this? I think it's Smother Moss. That's an F, I think. I think the title was Smother Moss by Elisa Ailring. It wasn't bad. And it definitely has some really interesting... If you like folklore horror, I think you'll like it. It has some really interesting folklore stuff. And it was good in the sense that me and my friend who read and exchange books, once we'd both read it, we kind of like we could discuss a lot about it and like kind of like realize things that had happened. But personally for me, this is only like these books are obviously, I say it every time, but it's not like these books are pure trash. They're good books. Obviously they wouldn't be published otherwise. But I just didn't really like it because I have a personal pet peeve where I don't like reading from the perspective of a kid. There's something about it that just irks me when it's like an adult trying to write the simplicity of a kid's mind. And it kind of like switches between two sisters. One is like 17 and the other is much younger. I did get some chuckles out of the younger sister though. She was very funny. But it's, as I was reading it, I was kind of, maybe D actually, I don't know. It's like DF. I might rearrange a couple of Ds once we get further into it. Now, Stargate, F tier, for sure, no doubt. I love the Stargate movie, love it so much. I watch it every couple of years. One of my favorite sci-fi movies. So I was excited to read the book because I loved the movie so much. But then I found out as I was reading it, I was like, this is just exactly the movie and it's not really adding anything. And then I found out that the book was only written after the movie. So the book is based on the movie, not the other way around. And it's just the movie, but poorly written. So I do not recommend this. If you want to know more about Stargate, just watch the movie. It's amazing. It's great. If you like Fifth Element, that kind of stuff, you will love Stargate. Yeah, it's just not that good of a book. Gas Station. I had fun reading this one. I would say B tier. It really grew on me. Between that and Nightvale. Nightvale is an F for me as well. Gas Station and Nightvale are very similar. They both have that vibe about them of like, we're in the middle of nowhere and weird fucking shit happens all the time and we kind of just work our way around it to live our lives. That's like if you've read either of those, you kind of know what I'm talking about. Tales from the Gas Station, there's 4 in the series I think now, and I read the first one. And it's just this like dude that works at a gas station. He works like the night shift. And it's just like, he starts a blog to like tell people about, because his psychiatrist or something is like, you should try journaling. That's good for you. So he starts a blog to talk about what happens at work. And it really was funny, and I liked how it went. And it was just like, it's just like comedy horror, I would say. A cult in the woods around the gas station. He's like, oh yeah, that's the cult, like whatever. And like one of the cult members keeps coming by to try and convert him. And they have this like witty banter back and forth. I really enjoyed this one. Then Welcome to Nightvale is kind of the same, where it's like everything is weird. But Nightvale, for some reason, didn't click with me at all. It was almost too much. Like every little thing didn't make sense, which became too much for me. They'll start with like a little radio intermission that will bring you the news or something. And then the news is like, blah, 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 high school is having a really serious tarantula problem right now. And then you think, okay. And then it says, So many of them are dropping out and not graduating high school, and it's like, okay, funny, I get it. Like I didn't expect that, and it's like, I don't know, it just rubbed me the wrong way. Like every little thing they say is quirky. Probably because I haven't listened to the podcast and just dove into the book, so I was kind of just like thrown into the deep end, and I just didn't like it because of that. Del Toro. Probably 8 here. Honestly, I really enjoyed this one. Del Toro and Chuck Hogan brought out a little mini series through Amazon Prime. There's 6 mini books. So I only put the first one in my Goodreads because it felt unfair to put them in as 6 separate books when really every book is like 30 pages. Like it was really, really short. I read the whole thing in 2 days, I think. But I really liked it because I love The Thing. It was like The Thing and Dog Soldiers had a baby. I really liked it. It was like just a cool setting. It was like a bunch of soldiers crash land in a snowy environment, and they have to shelter somewhere, and they find a temple and then have to survive. It really made me think of The White Vault as well. If you like The White Vault, the podcast, you will love this. Like, really recommend it. If you like snowy survival settings, it was great. And really short. Last Days. I'm gonna say B. This is Adam Neville. It started out so strong. First, like, something happens 90 pages in that I was like, holy shit, this is gonna be fucking amazing. And then it kind of like fizzles out throughout the book for me. And then by the end, I wasn't really into it anymore. It's a great book still. I mean, I'm putting it on B. Adam Neville is amazing. Such a good author. Really love him. His favorite of mine is No One Gets Out Alive, and The Vessel I really liked as well. Devil Makes 3. So this is another Tori Bovalino from My Throat and Open Grave. Probably D. I think My Throat and Open Grave gave me too high expectations for Devil Makes 3. And this really just read like kind of like a clumsy young adult. It was still good. I liked the ink magic in it. It's more like fantasy, dark fantasy. I don't know. It was fine, but it didn't wow me. Ooh, Elementals. This is the guy who worked on Beetlejuice, I think. What's his name? McDowell or something? I liked it though, but B, C, or D, I would say. It did something unique, so I like it for that. Elementals by Michael McDowell. Thank you. Yeah, Michael McDowell, I think, worked on a couple things. Let me see. Screenwriting credits. Beetlejuice, Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Dark Side, Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah, that was it. Nightmare Before Christmas. Oh, Thinner as well. I love Thinner as well. Great Stephen King movie. Yeah, Nightmare Before Christmas Beetlejuice guy wrote The Elementals, which is like an 80s horror book about 3... It really feels like Tim Burton-y as well. It's like 3 massive mansions built on a coast, on a peninsula, completely isolated from everyone, conserved in time. There's nothing you can do there. The houses don't even have power. The families just go there every summer who own the houses, and just like sit around in the heat, maybe lie on the beach a bit, maybe do a puzzle or something, read a bit in the book. But it's like they come there and really like slow down and nothing happens. And there's 3 houses. 2 families are really close together and own the 2 houses, come there every summer. And then the main character is kind of like one of the daughters. And it's her first time there, and she's like, who owns the 3rd house? And they're just like, don't look at it. We don't interact with the 3rd house. Don't look at it, just ignore it, and everything will be fine. You'll have a great summer. And the 3rd house is slowly being consumed by the beach. So the sand is like halfway through the house, basically, like swallowing it. It was just such a unique setting. I did really like it. And the way the family like interacts with each other really made me think of like Knives Out. You know that family, how they talk to each other and kind of like half insult, kind of don't really like each other, but they all get along anyway. It was really fun, yeah. Putting it on C because it's like on par with these other ones, I would say. Oh, we found another F1. Little Sister Death by William Gay is a book I found out that got published after his death, which was kind of creepy. That made it a little unsettling. Basically, after his death, they found a bunch of unpublished work in his house and then decided to publish it anyway. But reading it, I was like, it's probably a reason this didn't get published. It was very boring. It's an author who wants to do research to write a new horror book. So he goes to location, and the house is supposedly haunted. But nothing really, it's like the flashbacks kind of like show that there was a lot of superstition around it and it might have been haunted, maybe a bit of voodoo. But it kind of like just ends on a wet fart, like nothing really happens, and it's like, is it actually haunted? We'll never know. And I was just like, yeah, whatever, fuck that. Haunting of Blackwood House. S tier, baby. Darcy Coates does it again. It was so fun. I love this one. The main character comes from a family where they were very superstitious and believed in divination, hand reading, card reading. But because she grew up like that, her parents kind of like traumatized her by putting into her head like demons and ghosts are watching us at all times, blah, blah, blah. So she kind of like breaks away from her family, becomes super like atheist. Like, I don't believe in any of that shit. Everything has a rational explanation. And then she gets an offer to buy Blackwood House. And for very cheap. And it's just like, it's this perfect push and pull between like a house that's obviously haunted and a woman who really wants to live in this house and is like trying to really rational it out. Yeah, just very good. And her boyfriend is the cutest himbo ever. If you like himbo romance, he's just such a puppy dog. He's just so sweet. He just only wants the best for her. He's really like muscular and big, but he treats her so gentle. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved the ending. It's just a perfect book. House of 100 Whispers. A tier. Another really good one, I thought. I could not figure it out. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I couldn't figure out what kind of haunting it was and how it was being put together, what was going on. And it wasn't until like the book actually was like, this is what's going on. I was like, holy shit. House of 100 Whispers by Graham Masterton. Yeah, I know not many people liked it, but I fucking loved it. And I loved the ending of it as well. I feel like a lot of these books that make it to my S or A tier is just because they stick the landing, you know? The ending is just like, yes, so fucking good. House of 100 Whispers is one of those. I think this is Haunting of Hill House by Shirley. Is it Shirley Jackson or something? I forget. This is a classic. Putting it in F tier. I did not like this book. I love Haunting of Hill House, the TV show. I love The Haunting, the bad 90s naughties movie. I forget when it comes out. I thought I was going to go into it liking the book. And then I realized that the ending fucking sucks. I kept hoping it would lead to something, and then it just another wet fart ending that I was just like, fucking hell. I just wasted my time reading this book. It really made me feel like I wasted my time with how bad the ending was. House on Colt Hill is kind of F tier. It was fine, but it was kind of boring. It's weird because it takes place in Brighton. It has a really strong opening. Really, really strong opening. And then the rest of it just is like, eh. The Hours Before Dawn. Oh, this is another classic I read. I'm gonna say F tier, I think. It wasn't as bad as Little Sister Death or House on Haunted Hill, but it has one of those old book problems where it was kind of just like stuffy. The Hours Before Dawn by Celia Friendlin. Thank you, because I did not remember it's an older book. It's like 60s? 50s? I should look it up. What year it came out? Oh, 1960. F for fart. Yeah. I definitely got a couple of good chuckles out of me. It was like a housewife struggling, taking care of her kids. Like, it was really relatable on that aspect. Like, she was always tired and like her husband was asking way too much of her. She was super relatable. I can tell you that. The main character was so relatable. She was like always tired, doing everything in the house. Like, all the cleaning, the cooking was on her. And the guy just like goes off to work and then comes back and it's whatever. Like, he's not taking any part in the stuff at home. And it's just like, can you shut her up? Like, the kid's too loud. Like, one of his kids, like, at home. So it's like that setting made her super relatable, because then she was so misunderstood and she was really struggling with like keeping on top of the house. She had like a really annoying neighbor. I remember a lot about this book. She had a really annoying neighbor who was just like, who just kind of like is not in control of her kids. And she's just like, yeah, I'm just teaching them to be independent. You know, one of those mothers. And then her husband is like, oh, you seem so overworked. You know what? I know what to do. Let's go out to dinner. And it's like, that doesn't solve any of my problems. Like, the husband should help with the housework. That would make her feel better. So that kind of stuff was super relatable, but yeah, maybe it's a D tier. Maybe F is a bit too harsh, because I was really into it. But yeah, the story is that they're not really making ends meet, so they rent out a house in the, like, for a guest room, basically. They rent out a guest room for someone to stay there. And then the person they rented out to is really creepy, basically. But she was super, I'm putting her in D tier because the woman was just so relatable and it was so well written. But the ending, I can't even remember the ending. I think it really like got unhinged at that part, and it didn't really slot in nicely with the rest of the book. I wouldn't really recommend it to anyone, you know? The House That Horror Built. Christina Henry. I love Christina Henry. She's good. Do you see how equally divided I am between tiers, by the way? Holy shit, I am way more, like, organized than I thought. House That Horror Built, I really liked it. I like Christina Henry. Everything I've read so far of her, I really like. This lady is a cleaning lady, and she gets hired to clean a really recluse, retired movie director's house. And it's kind of like, I imagined it like Del Toro's house. It's completely riddled with like movie props. And then there's one prop in particular that she's just so creeped out by, and it was so well written. Like, every time she came into the room, she felt like it was like a wolf mask that was used in one of his movies where someone died. I don't remember exactly the specifics, but like, there's bad luck tied to that mask, and she, from the moment she starts working there, she hates that mask and being in the same room, and she feels like it's always looking at her and stuff. It was just so well written that I felt so bad for her. Like, she was a single mom. They were really like tight on money. She was just making ends meet as a cleaning lady, trying to do the best for her son, putting him in school and everything. And the son is so sweet as well, and he knows that they're kind of poor and that they can't afford nice things. It was just so well written. Like, even the start of it, my heart just like ached for her. Yeah, it was just very good. Christina's just very good. Last House on Needless Street. I'm gonna say F. I saw through the twist like from the start, and then it's just not that fun to read. The Rats. This is another classic. It's from the 80s, I think. I had a bit of a culture shock when God, it's so painfully dated when the couple like wake up in the morning, they're in bed together. It's like the start of the book, and I think he smacks her on the ass and is like, now go rattle those pots and pans for my breakfast. And she's like, yeah, let me go make you breakfast now. She's like, fuck, shoot me now. God. So very painfully dated, but the Rats are still kind of cool. If you can get past like the 70s, 80s, like, I'm a white man and I'm powerful and I will save the day kind of mentality. I loved the chaos. I could just see it all in my head, like just waves of rats like fucking gnawing on people and like overwhelming them. And yeah, that was cool, but very dated gender-wise. Ooh, The Troop, Nick Cutter. I'm gonna say C. I'm not actually a huge fan of Nick Cutter anymore. He's almost too much for me. Like, he's too gross. Also, there is a cat torture scene, a kitten torture scene that goes on way too long in this book. That really, really, like, fucked me up. So, fair trigger warning, there is animal torture in this book, and it's so drawn out that it really, like, that alone would make me want to put it in, I'll put it in a D tier. Yeah, that doesn't deserve C tier. It's there only to shock you, and it literally doesn't add anything, so it's so uncalled for. Aside from that, like, so it's kind of like a bioweapon person escapes a facility and then has to continuously, it's like almost like Thinner, like he has to keep eating and eating, and he just wants to eat anything, like he's always hungry, until of course at some point you start eating people, and it is infectious. So it's like a bunch, that's the setting, it's like a bunch of kids on an island, and then that guy kind of like makes his way to the island, I think because he's trying to isolate himself, but he doesn't realize that there's a bunch of kids like scouts, like doing like a survival weekend on the island. That in itself was cool, but it has a huge amount of like animal torture and animal killing. They try and kill a turtle at one point as well. This book kind of put me off Nick Cutter a bit more. My favorite Nick Cutter book actually is a book that he didn't write himself alone. This one, he co-wrote this with someone. This one I loved, yeah. The Handyman Method. This one is a very modern kind of book, which I really liked. I like tech horror, I've realized. Haunted media is what they call it. This is like a couple moves into a house together, and but there's like little bits. The dad of the family gets really irritated at little bits in the house that are like wrong with it. Like he'll find like a closet, a wall closet, but then he finds out that there's just a hole in the wall, but they didn't see that when they bought the house because the closet was closed. So he's like, fuck, now I have to like fix this fucking hole in the wall, and I'm gonna do it myself. And then he finds a YouTube channel. So the haunted thing is like the YouTube channel, so it's super specifically geared to him. So the YouTube is like how to fix a hole in your wall, and then the hole in the wall is literally the hole in the wall that he has in his house, and then the guy in the YouTube video shows him how to do it, what kind of stuff he needs to buy, and then it slowly starts taking him over, and he wants to do more and more around the house, and he needs to buy more stuff, and he gets completely like lost and possessed, kind of like into this like I have to fix everything mentality. It's really good, and the reveal of what's actually like going on in that house and stuff, just so good. Also, anyone in chat who's read multiple Nick Cutter books, have you noticed that every time a man gets scared in his books, he talks about his balls retracting into his body? I'm not shitting you. Every Nick Cutter book I've read, the guy gets scared and he feels his balls retracting. And I just can't, I mean, obviously, as a woman, I have no idea how to picture this. And every time he writes it into his books, I'm like, oh, there it is again. There's one for my ball bingo. Yeah, and I asked Sean, I was like, is this a thing that actually happens for men? Like, do you feel like your balls go like back into your body? And he's like, fuck no, what the fuck is this? Yeah, it's so weird. And at this point, I'm wondering if he realizes that he does it. It's really weird, yeah. Okay, MJ Mars, The Suffering. I really liked this one, but I don't think I can put it on A tier. It's not of the same caliber, I would say, but I liked this book because it didn't fuck around. It's a Halloween book, perfect for Halloween. It's a bunch of students, university students. For Halloween, they want to do a seance in their haunted. Their house has a history. They're totally fine. They just live in it. Nothing happens. But they know people have died in that house in the past, so they're like, it's Halloween. Let's do a seance. Let's fucking do it. They're all drunk, you know, they don't think anything's gonna happen. That's literally the first 10 pages of the book. Like, it just goes straight into the action, which is why I love it. It doesn't fuck around. It's just like a bunch of kids are stupid. They do a seance, and then ghosts attach themselves to them because they kind of like opened a gateway and then have to deal with the consequences. That's literally it. It's really straightforward. I love it. It was great. Would be great for a movie, I think. This one, it felt very movie-like, but it also felt a little like, I think this is her first book, or some of her first like standalone books for this author. I followed her on Goodreads because I'm like, I'm gonna keep an eye on you. I want to see what else you're gonna write. So super strong book, but just not on the same level as for enjoyment as these other ones. Last row. Okay. Now, Garth Nix wrote, "We do not welcome our 10-year-old overlord." That's the title. It's just a novella. There's not much to it. Garth Nix wrote Sabriel, my favorite, absolute favorite book ever. I think that's like my #1 book of all time in my entire life. So I love Garth Nix. So I was like, oh, he published a novella. I'll get into it. But I didn't really. It felt kind of like Stranger Things, like a bunch of young kids. I think that's it's definitely a me problem. I just don't really gel well with books when the main characters are like 10 years old. I don't know. I don't know why. I can't really explain it, but I just don't really like following kids from a kid's perspective. And that's just what this is. Like, it's just Stranger Things. They kind of like, they find this glowing orb that's like kind of like an alien. Yeah, it wasn't bad, but I just didn't really gel with it, you know? We used to live here. I read this very recently. I want to say D just because, again, for me, I realize now that I've never actually talked about all the books I've read like this before, and I'm starting to realize that for me, my rating really comes down to whether it's a satisfying ending or not. The book was so tense and unsettling throughout, but then the ending, I was just kind of like, wait, what? And it got really confusing the further we went, where I was just like, what the fuck is happening? Which it's good. Oh God, it's just really, really tense. It's like that perfect social anxiety book where like people kind of like invite themselves into your house and then won't go away. So it's really unsettling and it really like freaks me out. But then after that, it's kind of just like, what's going on? Maybe C. I should put it in C, I think. The moment I finished it, I was like, But then the days after it, I would like discuss it with other friends who'd read it and just like kind of try and like piece together what actually happened. But there's a couple avenues in the book that don't get resolved at all, that you could have just taken out of the book entirely and it would not have made a difference. So I'm kind of like, I don't really like that. I like when every little piece comes back for the ending. Another Darcy Coates, Where He Can't Find You, A tier. So this is a really unique book where the whole town is basically being haunted. Technology doesn't really work. Everyone has to like use bicycles because cars are really, really unreliable. It is kind of Stranger Things-y, but just a bit older. Like they're 17-ish, I think. Dead people show up all the fucking time. But the cops don't really know what to do. Everyone's kind of like stuck in that town and trying to save up money to survive and get away from the town, basically. And it has some really claustrophobic, like crawling through dirt tunnels scenes that really like, stuck with me. Yeah, the mom was so fucking scary. Yeah, this is a good book. Ooh, Nosferatu, Joe Hill. I want to put it in F tier so bad. This is the book that put me off of Joe Hill to the point where I will never read a Joe Hill book again. And it's not even that the book is entirely terrible, but the way he handles Dutch people just fucking made me angry. It was so insensitive. Oh God, I'm getting. I had to talk about this book in therapy because it made me so angry. The story itself, the haunted element of it, is great. Kids getting kidnapped and being brought to Christmas Land, which is cool. Like, I loved that part. There's a guy who lives across the street. He's like kind of withdrawn. He paints figurines. He's just like a nice elderly guy, basically, who stays in his lane. He's like nice, but he doesn't really interact with anyone. So this is purely my problem with this book, right? On multiple occasions, they say he has a Nazi accent. Which, okay, can you even say that anymore about German people nowadays? Like, that is so rude. But then the thing that makes it even worse is that the grandpa is Dutch. So he doesn't have a Nazi accent. A Dutch accent is not a Nazi accent. And I just got so upset that saying that Dutch people sound like Nazis is like, you are completely blowing over the fact that Dutch people were also under German occupation during the war. My grandparents fought off Nazis because they were trying to steal shit from their houses. Like, we have a statue in the center of town, like, thanking the Scottish for coming in after German occupation ended. Like, there's a lot of history there that is very sensitive. And then there's this grandpa who just, like, does his own thing, paints his figurines, and everyone is like, oh yeah, his Nazi accent. And I'm just like, dude, that made me so angry. And then they put a little bit of Dutch in the book as well. They tried, but it's so obviously Google Translate, and he was supposed to say something in Dutch, and I was just looking at it like, I'm Dutch, but I can't figure out what he's trying to say. He was in distress and then started speaking Dutch here and there. That was the idea. Yeah, Deutsch versus Dutch. Yeah. So I'm like, how can you be an author and not do like 5 minutes of research to realize that Dutch people aren't German? A Dutch accent is different from a German accent. You can't even call a German accent a Nazi accent nowadays. That is so insensitive. And then to use Dutch sentences but just throw it into Google Translate and not even have anyone fact check it. Like, just tweet about it. Throw it online to be like, hey, I'm trying to say this in Dutch. How do you say that? You can get the answer in literally a minute. Obviously, I'm very sensitive to this because I'm Dutch, but that is such a massive pet peeve of mine when someone is Dutch in one of these books and, like, it just doesn't add up. And it's like, just do 5 minutes of research, dude. Oh, it makes me so angry. Yeah. So for that alone, I would want to put him in F tier, but the whole bit about Christmas Land and Nosferatu is actually good. It was just that one thing really soured me on the book. Okay. Spite House. I'm gonna say C. It's cool because it's an all black cast, so that was very fun. That was new because there is honestly not a lot of black people in these books. So it's a dad and 2 girls, and they're kind of on the run. They're kind of like keeping a low profile, so they get a house sitter job as well. And it has an interesting ending. Actually, let's put it in B, because it's pretty strong throughout, and I did really like it, and it was very unique. It's called the Spite House because it was built to spite the people living close to the house. So they built the house very like thin and tall, and on the top of a hill, so that people in the neighborhood could see it, basically to spite people. Ooh, Cuckoo. I did not like this book. You know what? It's better than Nosferatu in my book. So Nosferatu gets kicked to F, and Cuckoo will be D. I had such a soft spot for the characters. So Cuckoo is a book about kids who are sent to one of those Christian camps where they have to pray the gay away. So I felt very bad for the kids, obviously. So there's like trans kids in it, there's gay kids in it, because the parents obviously want to just hide the kids away and be like, not my problem. But there's like monster stuff going on in the background at the camp. Well, the title is Cuckoo, so you can guess what happens. I don't want to give too much away, but the reason I didn't gel with this book was because there was a lot of angry sex in it, which just felt so out of place. Like, I was all for like kids were falling in love and like realizing like, oh, I'm falling in love with this person. What does it say about me? And I was all for that. But then they get out of this like super traumatic stuff that happens and then immediately have sex after. They have an orgy afterwards. And I was reading this like, am I reading this right? Like, why are they having sex right now? And I think it kind of explains it. Like they have a certain like bond because of how they were affected with the monster. They kind of were, I think their brains all connected or something. But I just don't see how that leads to sex. I guess, but I also, as a straight woman, I just don't really, I think it dealt with themes of like repressed sexuality, so then it has to come out. I think that's what it was. And I think the author herself is trans. So I was very interested in reading it, but for me, I felt really bad for the characters and I really wanted them all to fall in love and be happy together, but that was not what I was getting out of this book. Ooh, tender is the flesh. Ooh, that's a hard one. This is a hard one because it is a really good book, but I also did not like the main character. Maybe just put it in D. Yeah, Augustina Basterica. She's definitely one to keep an eye on. The book is very good, but at the same time, I think she just wrote the characters to all be so unlikable that I kind of just came out of it like, like I don't care about these people. They're all bad people. It's the same kind of with Nick Cutter. Like sometimes I think authors are trying to just be shocking for the sake of it, and then because it's shocking, people are saying it's good. But I'm like, the shock factor doesn't make books good for me. It's a really weird world. It's like the world runs out of meat, and then they turn to cannibalism, and then it's like legalized cannibalism. So there's like human factories, like people used for breeding just to be eaten. Yeah, it's very yeah, it's a very like book. This, I think, if I could give just one book an S+ ranking, it would be The Haunting of Lee Harker. I think this is my absolute favorite book of the year. It's another Darcy Coates. It had so many twists. I didn't see any of them coming. And I was just like I read it in 2 days. I was just glued to the book. I could not put it down. I loved every second of it. And it made me really emotional. It made me text my parents to be like, I hope you're okay. This one really like tugged at my heartstrings, and I won't give anything away because it would give away some of the twists. But it has a very beautiful relationship between a woman who's about in her 20s and like a granny. Very good twists. It gets quite gruesome at the end where I was like, oh, yeah. Just perfect book. From S+, we go to F tier. Joe Nesbo. I was really excited to read Joe Nesbo's The Nighthouse because Joe Nesbo is a really good thriller author. And I was like, ooh, his first foray into horror. I'm excited. Yeah, it just wasn't good. They keep it too grounded almost. Like it kind of becomes too grounded to the point where it's kind of boring. I just was not impressed by this book. Ooh, September. Whoa, we're going like way back and forth here. Fucking love The September House. It's a horror comedy. It is so good. Ending goes balls to the walls. Fucking loved it. Carissa Orlando. So good. If you want like a bit of more of a haunted house with like a bit of a like more comedy, lighter, easily digestible, very fun. It's about a couple who buy a house, which is literally their dream house. They put all their money into it, as you always do with haunted houses. But then the haunting stuff happens, and they just learn how to deal with it because they're just like, no, this is our house. We're not moving out. It's like, we're just have to get along because we're not moving out. And it's so funny. And they're just like, it's September. This is the month of the year where the walls start bleeding, and they're kind of just like trying to like they put buckets around the house, and you know, there's a bunch of ghosts in the house that they kind of just know how to deal with them. If it's the little boy, don't look at him. If it's the maid, she's friendly. She kind of like tries to help around the house, even though she can't do much. She's nice. It's like that kind of stuff, and it's so funny. I loved it. It gets a bit more serious towards the end of the book, which is probably why it's so good. There's a lot of depth to the main characters. I remember one scene that really made me laugh was periodically birds will fly into the house and kill themselves. Like they just fly into the, you know how in horror movies and stuff, birds will fly into the window and it's like a bad omen. Because it's a haunted house that happens periodically. A bunch of birds will just fly into the house and kill themselves. So the woman has to, the house owner, she has to go through the yard and gather all the birds, and then she burns them basically to get rid of them. So she's looking at these birds on the barbecue. Because she's just burning them on the barbecue. And she's just standing there with her ghost maid next to her, and she's like, how about some roast chicken tonight? It's just so funny. I really liked it. Writing retreat. Oh, that was a good one. Julia Bartz. It's like a writing retreat. So there's this really recluse, like very famous author who once a year invites like 4 people. I think it's 4, I'm not sure, 4 or 5, to a writing retreat to come stay at her mansion. And you'll basically be forced to write a book. The main character is like she has a writer's block, but then someone on her behalf, without telling her, submits one of her older stories, and she gets allowed into the retreat. But she's like, fuck, but I've had writer's block for like years now. I can't write anything for shit. And then these people come together in this house, and the author lady, the world famous author lady, is just such a weird person, and it gets like super like high stakes with like, we have to write, I have to do this. If I don't write now, I'm fucking getting kicked out. And really good twists as well. I really enjoyed that one. Christmas Guest Detail is a really short novella. Has like a twist where you're like, yeah, whatever. I don't know. It was fine, but I read a lot of Christmas books this year. I also read The Christmas Jigsaw Murders, which I'm probably going to put on D as well. Do you guys know the Thursday... What's the book called again? Thursday Murder Club or something? Where it's like a bunch of old people in an old people home. And they try and solve murders. They're like at-home detectives together. The Christmas Jigsaw Murders is very much like that. It's like a granny who's really bitter. She's kind of funny. She's kind of like Scrooge. She's really bitter. She hates Christmas. She makes a living making crossword puzzles for the newspaper. And then someone has an obsession with her and is saying like, he gives her little jigsaws. He sends her jigsaws in the mail. And then being like, I'm going to kill 3 people until... So I'm only now realizing it's Christmas Carol. I'm going to kill 3 people before Christmas, and you will have to put everything together to stop me. But yeah, it was just like, it's Christmas Carol, but modern day, grumpy, bitter, gay grandma. See, she was really funny. It was just this old, bitter, very gay grandma, and she has a gay son, or not her son. She has it's a nephew, but she adopted him to take care of him. And he's gay as well. It was just very funny gay humor. So for that is going on C tier. I did really enjoy that. Ooh, Mr. Mercedes. Oh, it's D or an F for me. I read it because I want to read more of this series. So this is a whole series with a character called Holly in it, but I feel like I'm gonna put it on F because I felt like he didn't really properly go about like... Well, there was no character depth anyway. But I think he came out later saying that she is autistic. And I think nowadays people really like her character, but this is like her first appearance. And I feel like he kind of made her too shallow and too stereotypical, which I didn't really like. I feel like she felt like a very dysfunctional person, and I feel like probably people like it. I haven't read the other ones yet. I'm gonna. And I think she has a lot of character growth, and now she's a great character, but I feel like how he portrayed her in this book was disappointing. Yeah, same with Joe Hill. Just do your fucking research. Like, have you ever spoken to an autistic person? I don't know. Maybe if I read the later books, I can go back to this one and be like, actually, I would put it higher now, but at this point, I've only read Mr. Mercedes. Yeah, I would say that's kind of... Oh, here's the Junji Ito one. Hey. So, I don't know if I should put this in here because it's a manga and it's so different from everything else. I'll just put it on B tier. I barely remember it. I would have to leaf through it to see which stories are in this one particularly again, but Junji Ito is always good. Like, he never really misses. It's just good horror manga if you're into the mood for it. Mr. Magic, another media horror. I think C tier. I liked it. It's like one of those... There's a couple of... Channel Zero Season 1 is like it. I think Control, the video game, has an avenue that's like this. A bunch of people remember seeing a TV show when they were kids, but then no record of that TV show ever being made or aired exists. That's what this book is about. And then there's like 4 or 5 like kids who were on the show, and then they're being called back together for a podcast. So that was interesting. I like that. Mandela effect. Yeah, that's what all these books talk about as well. We're talking about Mr. Magic by Kirsten White, I think it is. I really liked it. I thought it was... And the ending is actually really good too. I'll put it on B. I really like that one. Yeah. And I love haunted media. I love it. Speaking of haunted media, oh my god, Ghaster, A tier. This was such a surprise. This book definitely isn't for everyone. And I think that's why I like it so much, because I went in with really low expectations. It's so weird. I think I like it as well because it takes place in Brighton. And it's so weird to like... She goes to the pier. She sees the zip line. She has dinner at places where I have dinner and then describes the place. And I'm like, yeah, that's the place. It's just... It's so funny to read a book that actually takes place where you live. So this lady meets someone. They get along really well, but they live a bit far away. And then they're like, fuck it, let's move in together. So she quits her job and goes to move in with him. But then when she gets to his place, the apartment is fucking empty. There's nothing there. She can't get a hold of him. She's ghosted. But she's also like, I know I didn't know him for that long, but there has to be more to it than this, right? And then she starts to like investigate. And I know a lot of people had issues with this book because they were like, well, why would she fucking stay there? Just like go back, like move back. You didn't even properly move yet. Just keep your stuff in boxes and move back and just give up on him. But I really liked this. I could really see her reasoning. Like, she was just so desperate and she felt very lonely. She finally found someone she really connected with. So I could understand how her desperation made her, like, she wanted to really just understand what happened. So she really wanted to, like, dive in and find. She just wanted an answer, and that's why she stayed there. So I get it. I really like that book. That was one part also that made me really laugh out loud was... because he ghosted her, she's like, is he alive or is he not? Is he a huge dick or is he actually like, was he actually really nice and something bad happened to him? And she was like, this is typical Schrodinger's twat. And that just made me laugh so hard. Schrodinger's twat. Is he actually a twat, or did something actually happen to him? I don't know. I really gelled with the writing style. The Watchers, probably D. I saw the movie first, and then read the book because there's a sequel coming out this year, 2025. So I was like, ooh, sequel, I'm definitely down for sequel. I thought the book kind of like butchered the ending. The ending for the movie, the ending for the movie didn't really make sense. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? It's like a very good setup, bad payoff kind of movie. But I was like, sequel's coming out. I was enough into the concept that I wanted to see if the book was much better, and then I can read the sequel later. I also have a very vivid imagination. I listen to, like, when I like to read and I really like want to cut out sounds. I listen to like a train with like some melody, like some notes that go like it's like sleep audio or something. I like to listen to that as I read. And this book, I very vividly remember I found a particular track that on Spotify. Like every time I listen to that, I think of this book now because that's the first time I listened to it. It was good, but I think I would have enjoyed it much better if I hadn't seen the movie, you know? I think the movie kind of like skewed my view of the book. I think if you haven't seen the movie and then read the book, you would probably like the mystery of it a lot more. So I'm putting it in D because I kind of fucked up seeing the movie first. Ooh, Her Little Flowers. B tier, that was a good one. Kind of like a witchy haunted house book, all about like the main character is super versed in botanical things and she likes to attribute certain flowers to certain people, which I really fondly remember. She's like, oh, my sister is definitely a dandelion or something. It's not that, but like, you know, that's how she would say it in the book. Almost like astrology. Like she would be like, you're that kind of person. By Shannon Morgan, yes. The house is haunted, but she makes do and she lives all by herself, the main character. But she's struggling for money, so she decides to rent out a room in the house to two construction workers. I resonated with her a lot because she was very awkward and like withdrawn, and to the point where she's like, how do you even interact with people? How do you talk to people? It was really endearing to me. We were on the same page, let's say that. But it's very sweet, and then one of the construction guys like sees everything wrong with the house and offers to help out and like fix the house and stuff, and that's what I mostly remember about the book, let alone the haunted aspect. It's kind of like the TV show for Haunting of Hill House, where it's like you have the adult person and then slowly like the memories come through and you piece together what happened to the family that used to live there. So it was good. It was definitely strong throughout. What Feasts at Night? I'm gonna say D. This one was kind of a miss for me, which was weird because I really liked the first one. I forget what the first one's called. This is Kingfisher. What Moves the Dead, yes. I absolutely love What Moves the Dead, so I was very excited for this one, but What Moves the Dead was just great. Such a good little novella. And I was excited to see more of it, but What Feasts at Night, it wasn't bad. It was still good, but I don't know. It just wasn't as good of a haunting this time, which was a bit of a shame. I do really like the world, but... Silver Nitrate. Ooh, that was a pretty good one. I'm gonna say C, because I liked Mexican Gothic way more. Speaking of What Moves the Dead, I thought What Moves the Dead and Mexican Gothic were very similar. But yeah, that Mexican Gothic author, Silvia Moreno Garcia, she wrote Silver Nitrate as well. This is another haunted media book. So they're talking about like a snuff film that was filmed on silver nitrate. So the reels are very flammable. And like it goes about like trying to finish the film and edit it properly or something. It's like an unfinished project that they find that they kind of like, but by finishing it, I think they summon something. It's something like that. I liked it, but it's hard to explain without really giving away like the ending, you know? But I liked Mexican Gothic more, I would say. Ooh, Ghost Tree. Definitely B, maybe A? I really like this one. This is another Christina Henry. Ooh, do I like it more or less than The House That Horror Built? That's the question. Definitely not more. I have more of a soft spot for this one because I just like the idea of the props being haunted. The Ghost Tree was more like a coming-of-age witch story. So more like dark fantasy, I would say. And it's still good. I would put them both on B tier, I would say. Yeah, I think that's better. I really enjoyed it. It was really good. Christina Henry is fucking great. But yeah, coming of age, witch story, haunted town, kind of like Where He Can't Find You. kind of similar, like the whole town is kind of like in its grasp. And then it has to come to a head. Ghost Station. I'm gonna say D. It was good, but it wasn't great. S.A. Barnes. I've read S.A. Barnes. Which one did she... So she wrote Dead Silence, which I absolutely loved. If you want to read any Barnes, I would say go for Dead Silence. Dead Silence was way better, I think. Dead Silence is basically Titanic in space. I'll let you mull that over for a bit. She wrote Ghost Station after that, and it was okay, although I didn't really gel with the main character that much. And then the reveal at the end, again, obviously, like anything I put in D F tier is like the ending didn't stick. The reveal of what was going on, I was just like, oh. Delicate Condition. Oh. I think this book would gel with you a lot more if you are a mother. If you have been pregnant in your life. I'm gonna put it on D just because I obviously have no idea. It's kind of like Rosemary's Baby. Yeah, it's like a modern Rosemary's Baby, I would say. With a better ending. Rosemary's Baby's great. But I did stick the landing, but I'm putting it in D just because I don't know what it's like to be pregnant. I just couldn't imagine anything of it, and the whole thought of being pregnant, I'm just like, preggers. Yeah, so I only read it because I have this book subscription service, and they give me like 3 books a month. So I try and read the ones they give me, at least one of the 3 every month, and that was one of them. And I did like the ending, but yeah, the theme of it, I'm just not really into that. Ooh, Dead Lake. Dead Lake is gonna be C tier, I think. It is Darcy Coates, and the reason it's in C tier, it's like, I think it's 4 or 5 short stories. The first 2 are so fucking good. The first 2 short stories, S tier. They're so good. Like, I felt like my heart beating in my chest when I finished the first story. It was such a tense, like, cat and mouse kind of like story. It was just so good. But then the last 2 I felt were really, really weak, and they kind of like put the book down. Your Shadow Half Remains. I'm gonna put that one in D as well. Kind of like forgettable. It's kind of like Bird Box, where you can't look someone in the eye. Wait, that's Bird Box, right? You can't look at things in Bird Box. Your Shadow Half Remains is like a novella about you can't look someone in the eye or you'll go crazy. And the main character like lives at a lake cabin, super isolated. Drones deliver your groceries. So the world kind of still functions, but you can't look anyone in the eye. And then someone moves in down the street, basically. And then she has to wrestle with like, I'm so lonely, but I have to isolate myself. So it wasn't terrible, but I was just like, yeah, I didn't really gel well with it. Zombie Ducks. What am I gonna do? Obviously it's not that great, but it wasn't bad. Oh god, I'm putting so many books in D tier. I might have to move some stuff around. I'm gonna put it in D because obviously it's just a jokey, it's like 50 pages. It's kind of like a jokey books about toys becoming zombies. They're evil. I kind of, put it in C tier. I kind of enjoyed it, you know? It was just like a really short, funny story. No, I can't do that. It wasn't terrible. Oh my god. Here's an F tier to end it on. This book is by Clay McLeod Chapman. Okay, so yeah, it reminded this. I loved the 2/3 of the book were great. It had Keanu Reeves. It reminded me of The Gift, which has Keanu Reeves and Cate Blanchett in it. I love that movie. I know it's kind of like a 7 out of 10 movie, but I really like it. She's like a card reader, tarot card reader. She reads people's fortunes for money. That's kind of like how she gets by in the movie. And then a murder happens in the town and she gets visions and then she helps solve the murder. So if you haven't seen that movie, I recommend it. It's pretty good. I like it. And what kind of mother really reminded me of that? It's like a woman as well who does cart readings to get by, and she lives in a motel and kind of just like tries to pay her rent, or it's not really rent if you live in a motel, but she kind of like stays in the place just by doing her cart readings. And I love that setup, so I was really into it, but then the last third of the book I was like, what the fuck are you doing? This doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I did not get along with the characters' motivations at all. That's everything. Okay, let's see if I need to rearrange something. I think the S tier is pretty solid. I think that's good. It's mostly these lower tiers I think I might have to maybe rearrange something. I'll put Botanical Daughter on C. It's just because like when books get horny and I'm just not in that horny space myself, I just really am like, what the fuck is going on? Should I put Wind and Truth in D tier? No, not Wind and Truth. Oathkeeper. Oh yeah, Oathbringer's there. Okay, that's good. Let's put Pokemon on F tier. I'm sorry. Weird ending, predictable twist, boring. Barely remember it. Oh, this is the Chimney Sweeper. Yeah. Kinda too young adulty. Don't remember the ending. Gender problems. Animal torture for no reason. Too sexy for no reason. Too horny for no reason. Well, probably repressed sexuality. I get it, but also I couldn't understand. Too shocking for no reason. Saw the twist coming. Seen the movie already. Not as good as the first one. Not as good as the first one. I can't imagine what it's like to be pregnant. Predictable. It's zombie ducks. I can't really say much about it. I think F tier is pretty good. I might be a little too harsh on the Overlord one, but at the same time, you're not missing out on anything by not reading this book, you know? I think that'll do. Yeah. Who knew D tier would be like the most populated tier? Okay, let me just here. Okay, so now you can see it a bit better. So S tier is kind of like, it, for some reason, sent it to the next line. I have no idea why, but we're just gonna have to live with it. So yeah, Diavola, Gallows Hill, My Throat and Open Grave, Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archives in general, Blackwood House, The Haunting of Lee Harker. So that's 3 Darcy Coates in S tier. I'm a huge fan, obviously. September House. Those are my biggest recommendations for 2024, and my number 1 is going to be The Haunting of Lee Harker. Yeah, like I said, this one not only has great twists, but it made me text my parents. So it's really good. Oh yeah, this is everything, so you can see everything. You can see it's not high quality, but you see them a little better now. Yeah, that's it. Any questions for class? Any books I haven't finished? I've definitely finished some books as well, like Little Sister Death was just a struggle throughout. Into the Miso Soup I really didn't like. I mean, I used to not finish books, but I think this year I've kind of like forced myself to finish everything. Have I read House of Leaves? That is one that I haven't been able to finish, but that was like years ago since I tried, so not for 2024. I have no reading goal for this year. So I read 80 books, and I don't think I want to push myself to read more than that. I also don't want to be like, I'll try and read 50 this year, because who knows, maybe something comes up. Sean and I picked up Path of Exile 2, and it's been really fun. So maybe I'll game a bit more this year in my free time instead of reading. Who knows? So I'm gonna I've also had quite some neck issues because I read like this a lot, and then I'm like, oh, sit up straighter. And then I just sink back down again. So I might have to just ease it up on the reading a little bit. What is it? Like 96% horror, and then a touch of fantasy and sci-fi, but I prefer sci-fi horror as well. So I read a couple fantasy books and more like dark fantasy. Like, my favorite is necromancy fantasy. I love, like, Sabriel, raising the dead, fighting the dead. This is cool. Have I tried audiobooks? I sometimes pick up an audiobook version of whatever I'm reading, so if I go on a walk alone, I can listen to it as I'm walking. I do that sometimes. I'm trying to get more rowing in. I rowed half an hour, 30 minutes the other day, and I wasn't too sore, so this is a good sign. I think I can row more and more now. Because my traps are so like tense and they give me migraines a lot. So I had to build it up very slowly and very carefully. But now I've reached a point where I think I can start pushing myself more again. So when I row, I've now started listening to audiobooks as well. So just row away and listen to a book, you know? Some books I just read on Kindle, especially like Brandon Sanderson. Those books are so heavy and so big. I just read it on Kindle for convenience. But I do read a lot of these paper as well, so then I can exchange them with a friend. So basically, I buy a book and it always goes to a friend or back to like a recycle shop or something. But I have like one friend who I exchange books with, so that way, like, we kind of like save money in that way. Like, we buy books and then one of us reads it and then the other person reads it. So that's how we kind of like do it right now. New Grady Hendrix books. Yeah, Grady Hendrix is great. I haven't read any Grady Hendrix this year. That was all 2023, I guess. His horror store book is one of my favorites. And the one with the little dolls. How to Sell a Haunted House. Yeah, he's great. I also, I think it was like 2 years ago when I kind of like got into reading more that I was like, you know what? I'm just going to read what I want to read. I'm just going to read horror all the time. I'm not going to read a book just because it's like a popular book right now. I realized that I'm just really into specifically haunted house horror and like supernatural horror. And once I like surrendered myself to like, okay, I just like this, I started reading so much more. Like, once you just kind of like find your genre that you're into, yeah, then you start reading a shit ton. Screams from the Void, good sci-fi horror. Ooh, yeah, maybe I'll read a sci-fi horror again. For 2 years in deep space, the freighter Demeter and a small crew have collected botanical life from other planets. It's a lesson in patience and hell. Mechanics Ensign Reyna is ready to jump ship, if only because her abusive ex is also aboard, as well as her overbearing boss. It's only after a foreign biological creature sneaks aboard and wreaks havoc on the ship and crew that Reyna must find her grit to survive. Sure. I'll add it to my to-read. I also want to read Dracula soon, another classic. After Nosferatu, I fucking loved Nosferatu, man. I watched it on January 1st and I was like, is it too early to call it my movie of the year? I loved it so fucking much. So good. Love me a good classic vampire. So I might want to read Dracula this year. But yeah, that was it actually, I guess. It is 5:30. I should go because Sean is leaving in a bit as well, so I want to say bye properly. What an unusual stream, eh? I'll post this picture in Discord and on socials. But I hope you guys liked it. I know it's very different from the usual and not everyone is into books, obviously. Not many people want to be big readers. But yeah, that's all I read last year. Quite a bit. I don't know how much I'll read this year. So again, I feel like I'm taking it slow, but slow is like I still read a book in like 5 days. So I gotta finish up my boring Paul Tremblay book. That'll be a rank F for sure next year. See you guys there next year. Put them right in F tier. Again, anything that I've put in F tier, it was good enough to get published, obviously. It's just that I didn't gel with it. I'm sure there's people out there who love those books that I put in F tier. So it's all very personal, isn't it? I'm very particular in what I like. I know that. I'm very particularly and very specifically into haunted house books. And I'm sure there's people out there who are like, oh, haunted house books are so fucking boring. So to each their own, you know.